All right. Ayo, you're listening to Best of Becca, a podcast where I talk about all things real, where I bring in my real life experiences and special guests where we help you navigate through some similar experiences. Now, let's get real.
Yes, I'm King Ferdinand. I'm so excited to be here with you,
Ah,
Becca.
yes. Thank you so much. So tell us a little bit, King, about who you are, what you do, and where we can find you.
Okay, well, who am I? I am the host of a show called Talking Just Talk with King Ferdinand, and I am the creative director of a brand called the House of King Ferdinand. So I'm doing two things at once, but they all meet at an intersection. So the one thing that I'm really proud of is creating this backdrop here at the studio for Talking Just to Talk with King Ferdinand. And I love to interact with new people and have them on the show. So I'm really, really happy to be here and have a great conversation with you today.
All right. Should we get into today's topic then?
Let's get going.
All right. So we're talking about how to identify a safe person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Safe person.
Yeah. So I want to start by asking you some questions. First of all, in your experiences, how do you know when somebody's a safe person?
I will say if they're really a good listener, it starts there because you would think that it would be something else that would identify a safe person. But when you can tell that person's actively listening, and then when they show you signs that they are listening by regurgitating specific things that you share with them along the conversation, right? They're letting you know that they're present and they're listening and that you can trust them. So it won't be that first go round, but you'll notice a pattern. You'll notice a trend that this person is really good at listening and being present and not making it about them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's exactly where I was going with this. It's all about, for me, it is about conversation and does it flow or is it argumentative all the time? And like you said, it may not be the first time you meet them, may not be the second time, but you should know within a few weeks and more consistent conversations.
Yeah.
And it really is, for me, it's like all about how you feel. Like if there's like a
Absolutely.
ton of anxiety, but not like I have like anxiety right now, but it's because I'm excited.
A different
you know?
reason. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's exciting, but I'm safe. You know,
Yes.
like I know, like I mean, I'll be honest, like we just met not even a week ago.
2 weeks at the
Maybe,
most. Yeah.
maybe. And we
Yeah.
knew within like 4 days that okay, yeah, we could definitely could collaborate on this and we can definitely
Yes.
be open. And we're still slow to talk about our personal lives and things, but we know that eventually it probably could be safe. And
Right.
but we also have the emotional intelligence. And I think that brings a big role as well.
Yeah. And we'll get there. I mean, that's the one thing, you talked about this topic and you have some other things planned, right? And I think that taking our time to go through those topics and get to know each other is just going to take time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another big thing in identifying if somebody is not only psychologically safe, but physically safe is kind of like watch how they respond to certain things, whether it's the mistakes you make or others make, and
Yeah.
ultimately how they're treating other people.
Yeah. And if they're talking about a person in front of you, right, and the mistakes they made, or they're talking about the situation and telling you details, that person is not a safe individual you want to share information with.
No, not at all. Or maybe not on like certain topics too.
Yeah.
Because I think there's sometimes it's like it might be safe and to talk about, certain things, but in other ways, maybe we don't talk about politics.
Right.
But I think that all comes with just like discernment as well, and that's something also to learn and grow from, and it's definitely some hard lessons for sure.
Yeah. If I can add one
Yeah,
more
please do.
comment. So when it comes to a safe person, I think a lot of my leadership experience kicks into play where I create that space, that environment for my friends, my family, and even people who I don't know. And so, like right now, the way we're sitting, you're sitting there and you're close to the door. This is all intentional. So you don't feel trapped or closed in. So I do a lot of these things unintentionally, but that's creating a psychologically safe space for a person to be in.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of that I learned from my leadership experience in corporate America too.
And I can also say, like, just coming in and meeting you, it was, welcome, like, have a seat here. Like, I'm going to go do this and I'll be right back. Like,
Yeah.
And knowing, like, I am safe. There's nothing crazy going to happen. Like, we're good, because I've definitely been in places where you come in and it just feels like chaos. And, especially if you're young, you don't know if that's normal.
Right.
And I
right.
think that's like a big reason why I want to talk about this topic is I think a lot of people normalize chaos and discomfort when there really is like a lot of safety and peace in the world, but it's not always easy to identify.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Wanted to piggyback off of a physical environment and creating that space and the safety behind that too. So, I mean, I could elaborate on friendship dynamics. So, you have these friends that you can like go and drink with and have a good time with. And then you have some really core friends that you can trust. You can talk about private things. You can call them if you have issues, or you can call them to celebrate success,
Hmm.
right? Those are the people that you are going to be safe with when you want to share some serious news or
Yeah.
something important. So it should be easy to identify, but I think the more you mature and the more you go through life experience, you will be able to identify those people because they'll
Hmm.
be consistent pillars, and they
Yeah.
show you the signs early on
Hmm.
of who they are.
I will say though, something that kind of was a hard pill to swallow. Sometimes people do change from safe to unsafe, and I think that's important to know. I recently went through an experience where I didn't make the greatest decision, and I thought I was talking to a friend that was going to understand, and otherwise, it was just really judgmental and very harsh.
Okay.
And the first thing that came to my mind was, this person is no longer safe to talk to about this topic.
Wow.
And it's not that maybe we'll never be able to, but it's like right now, and there's something not right, and that was something to really identify. And it was the fact that there wasn't active listening. They didn't even hear what I was saying. They just
Right.
jumped straight into it.
Yep.
And then when I was like, hey, do you think that we can not do that, it was kind of like they didn't understand it. It took them for a while, and there still hasn't been like much apology. And it's not even to villainize that individual, it's just to see that like their emotional intelligence and where they were at with that was
Right.
not safe for me.
Wow. And the lack of growth and self-awareness there.
Yeah.
Because if
Mhm.
you're a growing human being, there are some things that you should learn along the way. And if you recognize the people that you've had in your life for a long time, they're not growing at the same pace or at their
Mhm.
own pace, they're
Yeah.
not growing at all, then you realize, oh, let me pivot from the way I've interacted with this person.
Mhm. And something to take accountability of that experience also was, she was able to be like, "Well, you know what? My friends did that to me," and didn't like almost normalized it, like didn't realize that maybe that wasn't a
Right.
safe answer.
Right.
So a little bit of educating too, and
Yeah.
it comes with a little grief too of, okay, well, it's one less person I can talk to.
Yeah. Can you think of a person right now that is a safe person, safe haven in your life?
Oh, yeah, I've got 4 of them.
Okay.
I've got 3 best friends and my mom for sure. I can call them up, text them, say, "I have fucked up.
Yeah.
I did this stupid thing," or "This happened," and they're gonna go, "You know what? All right, we hear you. Like, let's see where the lesson lies and how do we move forward?" Like, it's together. It's not a you against you. It's not, "Oh,
Right.
I'm gonna tell you, yeah, you were so wrong. You're awful human," or "You should have never ever." It's just more like, okay, maybe you shouldn't have, but like,
Hmm.
why haven't, like, just working it together, just like a thought partner in the situation.
Right, right. And one person comes to mind. I have several. My sister, she's my best friend, my ace boom coon, DJ DDB. She's been on the show before. She and I have built such a close bond over the years. Like, of course, she basically raised me
Mm,
because she's 7 years older than me, and so she played the role of mother.
mhm.
And now that we're adults, she is playing the role of my best friend.
Yeah. Oh
And
my god, I
so, yeah,
love that.
she and I have we've created a safe space for each other to share and discuss very serious things with each
Mhm.
other. And we know that that information is not going to be shared with anybody else. We know that we're going to be actively listening to the other person's either problem, success, whatever it is. We're going to be listening
Mhm.
and listening with an open heart.
I love that.
So,
Absolutely love that. And I just want to transition into like, how do you know you're personally a safe person? So for me, it's I'm not judgmental. Whenever you tell me something's going on, I'm gonna, just be like my friends were with me, and work through it with you and try to get either over that hump or just tell you maybe you're not wrong, or just, be a friend in that matter as much as possible. And another thing is being kind of slow to anger with mistakes, whether it's something they do, or something that they could have done better, or
right.
even to myself. I think that's a big thing
Oh,
too.
yeah, that's
Is
really
like,
good. That's
how
a
do
really
you
good point.
how do you talk to yourself? Like, are you really hard on yourself? Are you really, beating yourself up of every little mistake or thing you do? Or are you just growing from that problem and gonna be better and really reflecting? And I think that's a big game, like a big sign that you're a safe person.
Yes,
And I
yes,
think that's where it starts, is if you're safe for yourself, you're gonna be able to have a room to be safe for others.
yes, I agree with that. For me, I would say you can believe that you're a safe person all day long, right? Or your intention could be there to be a safe haven for other people. But when people continue to come back to you because they have an issue they want to talk about, or they have a decision that they want to make, if they consistently come back to you to rely on for that safe space to be able to share that information, that's a sign right there,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you can
Yeah.
feel that way, but there's like the universe and people will communicate that
Mm-hmm.
without verbally saying it to you.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. And does this happen to you? Like when you're in public, like just strangers will just open up to you about the
Yes.
craziest thing, and you're
My
like,
whole life.
"Whoa,
Yeah.
yeah, that
Yeah.
me too."
My
And
whole life.
happened to me today. I was at work, and a professor just told me her whole medical story, and it was like, "Okay, all right." So a little
Yes.
more than I was ready for, but I just knew that she automatically felt me as a safe person, and I take that into account.
Yeah.
I don't take
Yeah.
it as an annoyance, which I won't lie. I used to for a while there. I was like, "Oh my gosh, like." People are taking my time. Like, what is it? And they probably do it
Yeah.
with everybody else. And maybe they do it, but like, it's still good to know that like, I'm just safe enough for them to feel that. And I'm going to hold that space for them and not be judgmental
Right.
and just, I think that's just how we heal. And that's who we're supposed to be. That's part of like a journey of why we're here, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I would say with interacting with people in public and strangers, I do find that they would, for some reason, just start asking a question or like pull me into something that's going on in the environment. Just think about yourself at the airport, right?
Mm,
If the flights are delayed or if people are complaining, they tend to lean over and start talking to you about the problem. And then that's their way of engaging. And more than likely, they were looking for a way to engage with you because
yeah.
they feel that energy. I think it's a vibration.
Yeah, big time. And I think it's also big with kids. I don't know
Yes.
about you,
Yeah.
but kids are
Yeah.
very drawn to me and actually been more drawn to me recently as I've been giving myself more self love and more of a safe place for myself. And I've just noticed that like kids are just either I know them or I've known them for just a minute or I'm just walking down the street and just being me. And they're like, oh, like, this is what I'm going through. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, well, all right, kiddo. Like, I'm not your mom, but I can, I can guide you a little bit.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
powerful.
Yes, I've experienced that a
Yeah.
lot.
And I
Yeah.
think that's like the biggest reward of being a safe person. So even if you're a person who's not quite there yet, maybe you are a destructive person to yourself or to others, but like in your heart, like you can be a safe person, just know there is a reward for that. I think a lot of people think, oh, if you're too kind or too giving, like you're just going to get used. And I think, yes, to a degree, it can happen.
Hmm.
But there with boundaries, there are rewards. There are big rewards for being
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah. And not just for you, but for really, and I hate to get too like kumbaya, but for all of humanity, really, because what the
Yeah.
butterfly effect, if you do one thing positive or you interact with a person and make them feel more optimistic,
Mhm.
more love, more kindness, more anything that's on the upper part of the scale of feelings and emotions, then they're going to take that feeling to someone else. And
Yeah.
then it's going to echo out into society. And it's very subtle,
Mhm.
but the more you exude that energy, it's going to pay you back and it's going to pay everyone around you back as
Yeah.
well.
I also think that is a domino effect.
Yes.
You start it, they start it, they start it. Even if one person stops it, you can still pull them out and the domino can still go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think you can't. Let me rephrase. It's not that you can't, because you can,
Mhm.
but I think it's more authentic when you do it from a genuine, almost
Yeah.
autonomous place,
Mhm.
right? Like a subconscious place.
Yes, and it will flow definitely. Like once you get in your groove and you're just you and you're safe for yourself and for others, like it's just natural. It's really hard for me not to be a safe person. I think at
Yeah.
this point,
Yeah.
and you will learn that there are certain people where you kind of have to have more boundaries. I'm sure, but you can still
You
be
do.
safe.
You do. Because you got to protect that energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I have realized that over the years. It's like, wait, because there is a such thing as energy vampires.
Yeah.
It's like,
Oh,
okay, this
yep.
person's always going to be a listening ear, always going to give me some positive feedback or advice. They're going to use words of affirmation to make me feel great, right? I'm going to rely on this person, but that can be exhausting.
Very much so.
So,
Yeah. So there's discernment with it as well, but there's a huge value. Huge value.
yes.
Yeah. But do you have anything else to add?
That's it. I wanted to make sure we chewed on that a little bit more.
Yeah.
So are you satisfied with that? We can
I
continue.
am. No, I'm actually good at keeping it short and sweet.
Okay.
We hit on everything I wanted to hit on.
Awesome. Talked a little bit about this before,
Mhm.
but we're going to circle back and dig a little bit deeper because we just feel
Yeah.
like we need more context.
So we're gonna just jump in. We want to talk a little about people who aren't safe and how we know that and how we've experienced people who aren't safe at all.
Okay.
Mhm.
You want me to go?
I know I'm gonna go. For me, honestly, like it all started with toxic people, but I didn't know they were toxic until I met safe people.
That's the key word that came to mind. I'm so glad you said that. I'll let you continue,
Mhm.
but if you take the word toxic and you underline that twice and highlight it with a purple highlighter or maybe even a red highlighter.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, unsafe people, well, the word toxic comes to mind. That's toxicity.
Mhm.
So, yes, continue.
Yeah. So it's like I feel like you don't always know they're toxic until a safe person comes. I think I'm still
I don't know
squeaking
where
a
to I
lot.
hear it, but I don't know. This
Is it our are we
maybe we're too
clashing?
close. Maybe we're
Oh,
too
I bet we're
close.
clashing. Okay,
Yeah,
bet.
maybe
Yeah, I'm
that's
gonna
it.
move over. Yeah, just a little bit.
Just
Here.
make sure we're still in frame.
There we go. Is that good? Yeah, I can
Yeah.
see it. Yeah, so for me, like I just got out. No, it's even worse. Oh, there we go. Maybe am I too? Do I need to talk back? No. Here we go. Testing, testing. Good, 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 good. All right. So for me, it was a lot of like once I got out of my toxic situationship, which I was still like on the edge of like, is it really that toxic? Is it me or them? I started once I stepped back from that, I started meeting people that were very safe. And I was like, whoa, they're like me. Like
Oh.
they're like, I was like, oh, they were like reciprocating the same things that I was doing for that other person or for them, or they were like non-judgmental of who I was. Like I didn't have to apologize about just me being me. And even the little things of like just I one time I mentioned that I needed a whisk, and then all of a sudden this person was like, she brought it to me. And it wasn't like I had to mention anything. I didn't have to like, not that I'm manipulative, but like I didn't have to like cue anything for it to happen. It was just natural.
Okay.
And I realized I actually had several people like that, and I didn't even realize it either. And it helped me also to like create deeper relationships with those people and not go so much to those toxic individuals or
Okay.
situations thinking that I could fix it or
Right.
make them, be more like me, reciprocate it. Like it was just kind of like, just gonna okay, that's just not safe. This is safe. Like I was finally able to see it. It was like pretty much black and white. For a while it wasn't.
That's so interesting that that happened to you. So, when it comes to like manifestation, I'm always going to insert this in the universe and how we like the law of attraction. I think that we attract certain things, but then we also attract the opposite end of the spectrum too. So you identified a person who wasn't safe, but then you also started to recognize people who were safe, right? The opposite end of the spectrum, almost immediately, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it didn't take long at all. I would say at first I think I was like hesitant with the safe person, which brought perspective because I consider myself safe, and I'm like, oh well, maybe that's why those toxic people are so retractive from me. Like they also don't know how to feel around safe people.
Yeah.
And like I had to kind of learn that. Like I kind of had to like take it like it felt selfish to receive that safety. Because it's like, oh, I'm just a burden for talking about my feelings or what I've been going through or whatever. But this particular individual, like at drop a hat, she's like, not like you're not the villain. Like that person's been the villain. You've been putting your foot down. Like you're not the bad guy. Like it's okay. And that to me, that was a safe person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. They started to exhibit those behaviors like early on.
Yeah.
And that I think that's how you identify a safe person, but how you identify a person that is not safe, the person who isn't safe, toxicity, you pay attention to what they're talking about, pay attention to what they are looking at, what kind of friends they have.
Yeah.
You observe the relationships that they have, and that can tell you a lot. So just start really paying attention and being alert. What is this person bringing to your universe? What is this person bringing into your energy field?
Yeah.
Right? That's how you can identify if this person is safe or not.
And a big one for me also is like, and I think a lot of people relate to this, is like who you can like drink with or interact with.
Oh yeah.
I think like I've stepped away a lot from drinking because every person I was drinking with was just making an environment for me that just felt unsafe, whether it was we were getting in a vehicle or we were having just arguments that were just didn't sit right, or conversations, or I realized our values weren't aligned,
Right.
or I just didn't know what was going to happen if we were to drink together. Like, it was too unpredictable. I think that's a big thing.
Yeah.
I think a safe person is relatively predictable.
Oh, that's really good. That's so good. When I think about the safe people that I have in my life, my best friends and some of my family members, the people that comes what it comes to mind is that they are very consistent,
Yeah.
very reliable, very predictable. So that is like that's the perfect keyword to use. And I don't know, I just keep thinking about my best friend, one of my best friends. I met him, I think, in 2011. And we met because like it was a crazy weekend in Houston.
Oh,
And we were having
Houston.
yeah, yeah. Have you been before?
Yeah, I went to school just south of Houston, so
Okay,
I know
okay.
about that life.
Yeah. Yeah, Houston, that's not my favorite city in the world, okay?
That's why I'm in Dallas.
Yeah. Well, let's make fun of Houston real quick because
Oh, yeah, let's
when
go.
Dallas flushes the toilet, the water goes like Houston, baby.
Woo. Oh my
The
goodness.
concrete jungle, that you've heard that before, right?
Actually, no, I have not
Yeah,
heard
no,
concrete jungle.
it's
No.
because there's no hills and valleys and
Mhm.
like where's the body of water? There's nothing there. It's just
No,
flat,
no.
right?
It's pretty flat there, and it's really like polluted. Like, I could not breathe.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
when I
it's
would
very
like, it's a
humid.
4-hour drive from where I live, which was Huntsville, which is just south of Houston,
Mhm.
and driving back pretty much Dallas. There was a point in the drive, like an hour and a half, where all of a sudden my lungs just opened up
Oh,
because it was so polluted, and it
yeah,
was just so humid too. As long also, so
gotcha.
that was
Yeah,
challenging.
yeah. So we are talking about unsafe people
Yes.
and unsafe places
Hmm.
on Best of Becca right
Yeah,
now.
as we're talking about Houston, I will say, like, in my college, there was actually a lot of unsafe. It was a lot of unsafe environments for sure.
Okay.
And me being so young, I thought it was normal.
Wow, yeah, you
Yeah.
get wrapped into that and you realize
Hmm.
after you get out of that hurricane, you realize, "Oh, wait,
Yeah.
that's not normal. That's not everyday life. That shouldn't be
No.
everyday
Yeah.
life."
No. Like, I lived with several different roommates, and at one point, I thought it was normal, for all the chaos, until I was like, no, I don't think you should be bringing that gun in here. Like, I don't think you should be drinking my
Yeah,
cough syrup medicine,
yeah,
friend. And for the longest time, I was like, oh, like, they're cool. Like, we vibe, we smoke, we're good. But
yes.
then I realized they were bringing some other people. Maybe I was cool with them and we had the boundaries, but then they started bringing in other individuals who started creating
Wow.
an environment that was unsafe,
Mhm.
for sure.
I wanna see your
So,
whole mouth,
ah,
your whole face. You see that?
yeah, I guess
You
so.
know? And then when you lean forward and you speak, you can still see my whole face, but,
Yeah.
right, you can hear the power in my voice right
Hmm.
now.
This is comfortable.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's good,
Good.
yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
But yeah, so when it comes to, safety and people, I want us to expand a little bit more. And
Yeah.
I know we recorded a piece of content already, but let's kind of like pull a little bit of what we talked
Yeah.
about already into this
Okay.
because I'm liking this flow, and
Hmm.
maybe this might be a better piece of content.
Yeah. I did want
So
to add one more thing about
yes,
Houston, though,
yeah,
because I actually had full plans to live in Houston right after college. Like, I had a job offer and I was trying to find apartments, but something didn't feel safe. And a lot of it was like I couldn't even find apartments that felt safe or
wow,
were safe, whether it was because of flooding or because it was severe crime, or I just, like, I was really unfamiliar, was a little bit of it too. But I knew, I was like, I even told my family, I think I can make it in Dallas.
yeah.
I didn't know Dallas. I actually was kind of against it. I was even thinking more like Fort Worth,
Where were you born and raised?
south of Fort Worth, like
Oh, so
a
okay,
really
okay,
small
okay.
town. Some people know it, some people
We'll say it.
won't.
You got to
It's
give them a shout out.
Joshua, Texas.
Joshua, Texas. All
Yep,
right.
Hillbilly Central.
What's going on, Joshua, Texas?
Yep, and here we are now in Dallas. They're also big haters of Dallas, but I will say, like, I went for it. I just felt like I could be safe and I could figure it out, and I sure did. And Dallas is now like the most comfortable place, and I've been here 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Hmm.
I lived in Houston 2 different times. And the first time I went there is because I felt safe with this guy who I was dating. And, long story short, it didn't work out. I'm back here in Dallas, Texas. Okay. But he was at the time the love of my life. And, when it comes to talking about safe people, we got to talk about romance. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
friendship dynamic, there's romance, there's even people who are mentors in your life,
Hmm.
professional relationships. we want to bounce around and talk just to talk about talk just to talk about. It just rolls off my
It
tongue.
does.
Sorry.
It's good. No, you're fine.
And talk about all the different types of relationships that you have in your lifetime and how you can identify if this person is safe, this place is safe for you
Yeah.
long term, right? So I lived in
Yeah.
Houston 2 different times. That first time was relationship related. Then the second time was professional related. I went there for an opportunity. And both times I just felt like it just wasn't for me. It didn't resonate.
Yeah. Did you notice that when you were with those people who you assumed were the love of your life, and maybe you thought they were safe, was there a point where you were like, all of a sudden you weren't yourself, you weren't opening up like you would to other people, and you're like, okay, this just isn't safe. You're not
Mhm.
safe. This conversation isn't safe. Did that ever click for you?
Yeah, it did. And I still, even to this day, I'm 38 years old, and I feel this bottled up animosity and anger and resentment when I'm not treated the way I believe I should be treated.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm in an environment or relationships where I don't feel safe, my reaction, because of the way I grew up and how, what I saw when I was younger, is to react in an aggressive way.
Mm.
And so I'm
Yeah.
learning to work through those things,
Yeah.
but I recognized it by being triggered along the way. And so, like, it's still coming up over and over throughout my life. And I've done so much better in the way I handled it. But I'm telling you, I started to recognize the signs and I'm just like, okay, this is not working for me.
What were those signs?
With the romance and
Yeah. Yeah.
so the flirting with other guys in front
Mm.
of me, the being private about certain things that we should be open about in a relationship if we're sharing a home together, right?
Mm.
That's it, like the opening your space and opening your energy field to other people. Because, like, I know this episode is not about relationships or love necessarily, but that safety in relationships is critical to this
Yeah,
conversation, really.
it's a big one for sure.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a big highlight for
Yeah.
sure. Absolutely. Because I mean, we have relationships in every aspect of our lives, whether it's romance, professional, friendships. I mean, even just with the strangers on the street, like
Yes.
it's a relationship, even, it doesn't have to be a long-term one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then the relationship with yourself, right?
Yep.
You
That's
you
a
gotta
big
you gotta do
one.
that first. You gotta create that safe
Yes.
space for yourself first.
Yeah, because if you're, I mean, I'm guilty of, like, I would get so frustrated at my situations or what I was doing, and I would self harm in a sense, not like your typical cutting or anything like that, but maybe I'm punching holes or you just,
Getting
getting
aggressive, getting
aggressive.
upset or what?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Beating
Yeah.
myself up, like mentally or physically, it didn't matter. Like that to me, I was like, okay, well, you got to figure that out first, and you got to be safe for you. That's your home. And then you're going to be able to see others as well.
Right.
But it does trigger that. It triggers that, okay, well, I know how I need to be treated. You're not treating me that way.
Yep.
Like, and why is it not so obvious to you
Right.
that what
That's
you're
the
doing to me?
thing.
Because if I was to do it to you, you would trip just as much. So like make it make sense.
Yeah, let's make it make sense. And then when I start doing it to you, then you don't know how to act. You don't know
Yeah.
because I'm giving you a taste of your own medicine.
But guess what? Those people aren't safe.
That's how you know.
Yeah. And
because it's a double standard, right?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And I think it's like you don't know at the beginning, like we talked about. It's like you may not know for weeks or months or sometimes years on end. And it does change. But once you get that feeling in your chest when
Mhm.
you're ready to lose your shit, I think that's when you know, all right, you're not safe and you're not going to change. Because I don't know
That's when you know, baby, you got to do this. It's time to cut to commercial.
Cut it.
Yeah. So in Houston, I had I did gain some really great relationships that I still hold near and dear to my heart till this day. But when it comes to living in Houston and like just me feeling safe there and some of the relationships, it just wasn't the best for
No,
me.
and me too. I haven't been back. I have not even
Not
passed
even a
through
visit?
No, I haven't yet. It's been 5 years. I don't think I've even gone through that at all.
I secretly want to go back and visit like
I need to go back. I
soon.
need to. There was
Just
some
a
good
weekend,
food.
just a weekend,
There's
right?
some
Just a
good
weekend.
food. Yeah, just a
Just
weekend.
that's it.
Just
That's
to, kind of tell ourselves that we're still in the right place.
right. Because
But
Houston will let you know.
Yeah, no, and because I have created great relationships, especially where I went to school. That they're still in Houston. Those are good people, and I've learned that they're safe because I still follow them on social media. We can still talk to each other. So there's definitely there's still safe people there, but in the end, I've found my comfort in Dallas.
Yeah.
And that is also something to break from too.
Yeah. I mean, not to get personal, but do you see yourself living here in Dallas forever?
I did until I've got some opportunities. So
Okay.
there's some chances that I may not be in Texas, which is gonna throw me for a loop if that happens.
Okay.
And there may be options for Austin, which is also like, ooh, is that gonna be safe? I don't know. But what I think about though, which brought me to this topic, is if I were to travel with those people, do I have other people there that I think are safe? So like I have friends and family who are out of Texas. And I'm like, oh, they are safe. I could go there. And then Austin, I'm like, yeah, I actually do have people that are safe there when I didn't for a while. So that's
Okay.
something that I definitely like take into account in my decision. So when this opportunity arises, like that's something that I take in accountability. It's like it's
I
not
see.
even just about the money. Can I do it? It's about like the community. Because here in Dallas, that's something I created or found rather was a community that I am extremely safe. Like I found a church. I'm not even religious. I mean, I'm a sound operator, and I found a community that I can go to at the worst times and then feel safe.
A
You know.
sound operator. We got to
Mhm.
talk about that.
Yeah.
We have to. But
Mhm.
yeah,
So yeah.
you will attract no matter where
Mhm.
you go. You know this.
Yeah.
You know this to be true. So if and when you end up moving to Austin, you will attract what you are.
Yeah.
You will attract what you are. And even if it's some things that you don't like, it's just an opportunity to say, "Oh, I don't like that."
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
and decide and take action away from that so you can attract what
And
you
not
really
second
are.
guess it, because
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing that I'm learning is like I knew maybe that situation, that environment, that person wasn't safe, but I was like gaslighting myself. I was
Yeah.
like, nah, you're just not strong enough. You're just a wimp, or, come on. Like they're older than you. Like you're going to grow from it. Like, just come on. Like my ego was just feeding it. But now it's like, no, 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 no. If it's too much anxiety, if it's taken away from my peace, if it's making me triggered, you're out of there. And I'm not even going to second guess it because the grief will come. And I think the
Yeah.
grief is what
Wow.
like holds me back. So I'm like, okay, I'm missing something. I've
Mhm.
had a lot of grief in my life. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to feel that anymore. I want to try and work on my relations because I used to be quick to cut.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, I learned along the way that maybe that wasn't healthy. But I realized you got to decide who are the right people to cut and who are the right people to grow with.
Absolutely.
Because they may not necessarily feel safe in the moment, but do they have potential? And that's also a tricky thing too, is how long do you wait for that potential?
Yes.
Or you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
that's the one that I'm playing with because I'll be honest, like I am not an expert, I have not mastered on how to identify a safe person, but that's where I'm learning is the timing of it and then where to put that boundary and then when to just not worry about it.
Yeah. I think it goes back to what you said before. It does go back to the feeling that you have. So
Mhm.
you do have to trust yourself a little bit more than you have already because the way you feel tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
So if you feel anxious, you feel uncomfortable, you feel like this person might be lying to you,
Mhm.
that person's probably not safe. No matter how much potential they have,
Yeah.
they're telling you something without telling you
And
verbally.
even if you don't have all the logical reasonings, it's okay. I think
Yeah.
it's still okay to be like, all right, that just isn't right. I'm not going to engage in that. Like, I'm going to keep it just business only, or we're just going to talk about this, or we're going to slowly move them away. Like,
Right.
or maybe you got to study them more. I think that's something I learned. Like, when I'm meeting new people, like, I'm really good at, if I'm not careful, I'll just overshare. And then I learned the hard way that they're not safe. But versus
Right.
take a step back. You can still share, be vulnerable because that's how you create connections. But then study, let them talk,
Yeah.
go out with them a little bit,
Observe.
see,
Yeah,
observe,
absolutely.
yeah, because that's a big one.
Well, let's ask the audience, like,
Yeah,
how do you identify a person who you don't feel is safe? Or maybe that word toxic comes up again. Leave it in the comments. Let us know
yeah,
what's a behavior trait. Like, what would you recognize in that person that this is not a safe person that I should
yeah.
trust in my environment or trust talking about different things? I think the biggest thing is the way you feel, but let us know in the
Yeah,
comments.
and if you're also in an environment where you're feel like you're unsafe and you need to survive, whether maybe you're going through school, work, or you're in a relationship that you can't just walk out the door. Maybe you have kids, maybe you have financial um, connections. Like you just can't, block them and move on. Like, uh, put in the comments about your situation and let's guide you through that.
Absolutely. All right, Best of Becca, what's next?
All right. So we talked about, let's see, attracting unsafe people.
Oh, we kind of alluded to that. We blew a
Yeah.
kiss to that because I feel there's going to be an element if you're into this manifestation, law of attraction, if you understand the universe, and like I don't fully understand it, nor will we ever really understand it fully. But if you are really aligning yourself with it to understand it more, you will realize that you will attract a combination of different things.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, once you set intentions, once you set goals, once you become the thing that you want to attract, you will start to attract more things that you actually want.
Yeah. And
So
I will say sometimes you can't avoid it.
that's what I'm saying. It's like
Yeah, you
you
can't.
can't really be so like judgmental
Yeah.
towards yourself because it's inevitable. You have all of these different nuances and different people navigating
Mm-hmm.
their lives, and you're gonna come across a person at an intersection that doesn't align with you and your values.
Yeah.
That might not be a safe person, but it's really up to you to be able to identify that person and
Yeah.
then decide what you want to do from there.
And I will just be honest and real. I have a colleague who every single time I talk to him, I'm like, you're not safe. You're not safe. You're not safe. But there's other parts of him that are safe.
Yeah.
And then that's where I have to use my discernment and be like, okay, well, he is growing, but I also know, don't say those things, don't do those things, and
Hmm.
separate yourself a little bit until maybe he can get to that level where you can be,
Right.
or just knowing that may just never be and not worry about that relationship. Cause I was like, oh, like I want to be close with my colleague. I want to be, partners in this. I don't want it to be dictatorship. I don't want it to be unsafe for me because I've been in too many unsafe work environments. But now I'm like, no, the relationship is going to be what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And I just got to protect myself and we're here to work.
Yes.
So,
I can't say that I've had unsafe people in the workplace as often as I have in my personal life, just out and about interacting with people. But mostly, believe it or not, the unsafe people, the unsafe relationships, toxicity actually started with my family,
mm-hmm.
unfortunately. And it's not
Yeah.
like that right now, but I
No.
have to be real about the life experience that I've
Mm-hmm.
gained. And so I have had very toxic and unsafe relationships early on.
No, and I have to agree. And I think that's a good silver lining too, is even if they are starting off as unsafe, doesn't mean that they will forever be unsafe.
Right, right.
And there is a discernment too that they may never quite get there. Like, cause I'm the same way with my family. I know they're going to be watching this and I love them to death. But yeah, I mean, I'm on the spectrum. I'm gay. And like, we came from an environment where that was not accepting. Like, it was a culture shock for them. And, even with the conversation I have with my sister, she's like, well, you're not overbearing. So we're able to accept it. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm
But
not
what if
sure.
I want to be overbearing tomorrow?
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm like, okay, well, you're not quite there yet. But, I will also take for accountability that at least she's accepting,
Yeah. You're
so
not really gay, so maybe it's
yeah,
okay.
you're not like flamboyant, so we're good. You're not in your face. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well, and I started to kind of get that way. I cut my hair the way I wanted to. It was a little bit more masculine. And they had the reactions, that weren't the greatest in my opinion.
Right,
Not
right.
that what I wanted, but that was something to develop. But now they're like, oh, we love your haircut. We love who you are. We love that. And it
I
sucked
love
at
that.
first for
I love
sure.
that. Yeah.
But they're becoming safer.
Yeah.
And I can't say my whole family. My oldest sister, she was the most accepting. She was the first one I kind of came out to. I shouldn't say kind of, I did. And she was the safest for that. And, that's also discernment too, because she's safe for that. But sometimes there's other topics that I don't always feel safe yet. And it's something I have to tiptoe with because I'm learning as she's growing. That's evolving. And
Yes.
it's actually very beautiful. And
It
it's
is.
not that
Yeah.
every topic is safe and we have to learn that with each other, but then we see the topics that are and that we want to grow together. And that's been beautiful. It's taken years and we're 8 years apart. So there's something to take accountability of that for sure.
Okay. Is it the sister that I met?
Yeah.
Or okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So you
Yeah.
guys are meeting at an intersection, but you guys were in traffic before.
Oh,
right?
yeah, definitely. Because she also played the mom role. So there's parts of her, she's like, oh, I
Yeah.
don't want to hear that. I don't want
Yeah.
to see that. And
Absolutely.
now she's like, okay, well, you're grown and I'm grown. And like, let's be friends. Like, let's navigate through this. And
I
that's
love it.
really beautiful for sure. And I'm able to also feel comfortable enough to step like, hey, that's not really safe, yo. Like, I don't feel safe doing that. Like, I don't feel safe talking to you about that. And she, she doesn't want to be that person.
Right.
And I think that's where you grow. And you have to educate. people too. Like
Yeah.
if you're a safe person, you know that you will attract people that are unsafe, and they might be your closest
Yeah.
people, and you might have to educate them. And that sometimes is a hard pill to swallow because you're like, I didn't think I'd ever have to get to that point. You know, like you're older or you like the expectations have to like really change. You
Right.
know, they're learning too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we are magnets essentially. I don't
Mhm.
know if you believe that to be true, but when it
Yep.
comes to attracting different things, right? Different relationships, different experiences, to some degree, we are magnets and we're attracting and pulling those opportunities to us. Now, if it's going to benefit us or if it's going to teach us a lesson, that's a different thing,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So you have these relationships with your family and your friends and all
Yeah.
of that stuff. Then your professional life, you're gonna go through life and you're gonna have these unsafe people,
Mhm.
and you just have to be able to identify the signs early
Yeah.
on.
And for me, a lot of it is like having conversations that aren't flowing, they're one-sided. A
Yeah,
lot of it is politics, and I'll go ahead and talk into it. It's about to get real unsafe because we're about to go into a political campaign with two very different, people. And it gets ugly. And I think this is where it can become very unsafe, very
yeah,
fast, and you got to really protect yourself in this
yes,
time for sure because it's going to hit things personal, your sexuality, what you believe in, and you're like, okay, I cannot talk to you about that, like at all, or I
yeah,
can't associate with that because
yeah.
that's going to affect me personally in a lot of ways. And I'll bring in another real life experience. My dad and I, we have absolutely not the same view at all in politics. We had a moment where we got very physical with each other, and it was awful for both of us.
Physical
Yeah, like he
because of politics.
because of politics.
Oh my god, I cannot imagine
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, he did a
Wow.
number on me for sure. And I knew from a young age that he probably wasn't a safe man.
Yeah.
But I grew up in an environment where they weren't gonna divorce, they didn't divorce. And for the longest time I did not agree with that.
Hmm.
And there's still times when I don't think he's a safe person, but I watched him evolve. And now we know he didn't like that he did that. He never, actually talked to me about it, but I've watched with his actions. We don't even talk about politics in that manner. We might bring it up every now and again, but we're not going to get deep anymore because we know that if we're not careful, we're triggering each other because we grew up in two different lives, and I do see his perspective, but I'm evolved more. And so it's a little different, but I know that topic, specific campaign, specific person, specific topics, that's unsafe. That's not going to happen for my own physical safety
Yeah.
and
Wow.
psychological safety, and that's a big one.
That is. I mean, I think about religion too. I'm not a religious person. I'm more of a spiritual person. So when it comes to like church and a congregation and all of that stuff, I don't necessarily feel like that's the safest place.
Hmm.
That's my own personal perspective.
Yeah, I can bring in some of that. I grew up in a church, in different churches, anything from Methodist to Baptist to Assembly of God. I actually had the luxury to jump from different churches, and I didn't feel safe in any of those environments. But wild enough, I ended up in a church and have stayed in the church for over 5 years doing what I love, which is sound operating.
Yeah.
And I saw religion. I'm still not religious, but I see a community and spirituality so much differently. But this is a Presbyterian church, and I've never been in one of those.
Okay.
And it was so different. It's so welcoming. And I think it's also being in Dallas and where I'm at as well. So the LGBTQ are open, they're welcome, and they educate the people in the ministry on them. They have classes. I'm seeing people
Wow.
over the age of 45 engaging in conversations about LGBTQ being pastors.
That's creating a
And I was
safe
like, that is
space. That's
so safe.
beautiful.
And,
Yeah. Yeah.
like I used to correct all my friends because I'm like, oh, like I'm going to church, but really I'm working. And they're like, oh, you're so religious, you're so Christian. I'm like, it's so much more than that. Like
I see.
I go in and it just doesn't feel like that.
Wow.
Like, yeah, like the pastor will bring in a message and she'll work with it through the Bible, but like the messages, you can take out the Bible and resonate with it,
I see. Because
And
a
it's
lot of it is
yeah.
universal if you communicate it the right
Mhm.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
all about like go out into the world in peace.
Yeah.
Like that's their anthem. And I felt so safe there. Like I think the first Christmas, which wasn't even a month in, I decided to wear like a bow tie and like more my masculine side.
Yeah.
And I never thought I could ever do that in a church. And they were so welcoming. No one cared.
Wow.
And
That's so cool.
it's beautiful. Yeah.
That's really cool. I
And that's
mean,
how I knew
well,
it's safe.
we're talking
Yeah.
about creating a safe space, and little did we know we are going to circle around to
Yeah.
church and religion and
Yeah.
politics.
Mm-hmm.
See, this is how I wanted the conversation to go. Like we are
Mm-hmm.
chewing on a lot more,
Yeah.
right?
It's a
A lot
lot
more
more
specific and
comfortable.
personal
Yeah,
things too.
for
So
sure.
yes, continue.
Yeah, my next thing would actually probably transition into work environment because I'm now in like probably the safest work environment I've ever been. Yeah, I do see I have a few colleagues and things that I'm like not so sure about. But I also don't see it as like detrimentally unsafe. Like I was in past work environments where it was really detrimentally unsafe. Like I worked with people who were very like just anti me. Like it didn't
Mhm.
matter what my sexuality was. It didn't matter what came out of my mouth, whether it was lovely or not. Like I couldn't make a mistake,
Yeah.
and that's when I knew it was unsafe. Like I need to be able to grow and I need to be able to make those mistakes to be able to learn from them. But like that was the biggest thing. And now I'm in an environment where I work with doctors and like talk about the pressure, but these doctors make mistakes all the time. And they're so
Which is
welcoming with it.
crazy to think
Yeah.
about, right?
Like
Yeah.
I've been doing this whole week on my own as my colleague is out on vacation. And so there's a lot of mistakes that's been happening. And I'm like, I was like kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. Like this is high stakes. And these professors are like, it's okay. Like we know you're new. We know this is gonna happen. And I stopped making those mistakes, honestly, because I knew it was okay.
Okay.
And like I make more mistakes when it's unsafe.
Yeah, because that's is encouraged actually, and maybe
Mm.
if it's encouraged directly or indirectly. I know with my professional career in leadership, I've always been in a position where I'm leading people. I've always had to develop teams to be successful in different ways, and mostly a sales environment. And I've always had to create this environment of like what I'm doing with you, even if you think
Mhm.
about this,
Yeah.
like I'm coaching you, or I'm giving you feedback along the
Yeah.
way, right? I've always had to do this and create this environment to where no, 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 it's not serious. Like,
Yeah.
no, no, all right, do it again. It's
Mhm.
okay. And then I also encourage
Yeah.
their peers to participate in that safe environment.
Yeah. And I think that's a big thing is like your critical feedback, it's not negative. It doesn't hurt me. You know what I mean?
It
Like and at
shouldn't.
first for a while there, I thought it was just me whenever I couldn't take feedback. But then I learned it depends on how it's translated
Delivered,
and
how it's
delivered.
delivered.
Yeah, because
Yes. Yeah.
I'm like open to yours 100%. But
Yeah.
if you bring somebody else in here and they're just like, nope, that's bad. No, I'm like, ooh, okay, like I just don't want you in this environment at all.
Yeah.
I need why is it not good? Like, why are
Right.
you not resonating with it? Like, if not careful, you're just this is something you don't like. It's just an annoyance, and that's not. We just don't resonate. Like that's
Yeah.
different, you know.
That's not how you learn.
No, no, no. And I
That's
think how you
yes.
learn that also teaches you how to identify a safe person. Maybe you are at school or at work and you're like, okay, I can't get the subject, can't get it, but is it because of the way it's being delivered or like what's really
Most
going
of the
on?
time.
And if
Yeah.
it is the professor or something like that, you might be like, okay, well, I'm gonna go to a different tutor. And that's kind of how you survive that because you can't quite get out of that class, you can't quite get out of that work. Like, all right, you identified that person isn't that's not helping my growth. That's not
Right.
helping me learn. I can't make mistakes without feeling just ugh about myself,
Yeah.
But maybe somebody else can digest that information that you're struggling with, can see your mistakes and be like, I made those too. It's
Yes.
okay. It's normal. Or, you know what? Maybe you do need to work on it a little bit, but it's not impossible. It doesn't make you a bad person, doesn't make you a stupid person, doesn't mean you can't be a doctor. It just means you're just struggling and we're just going to get
Mhm.
past that hump. I think those are the people that are safe.
Yeah. And just to piggyback off of that, so when you think about the workplace, you think about studying at a university or high school, even,
Mhm.
you're
Yeah.
thinking about like a community, a group of people that has the same goal, right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe the person that is in leadership, the leader of the team or the professor, the teacher, maybe that person doesn't have the personality or
Mhm.
the right approach to actually teach, but they're in that role, right? You have to identify people that is in that same space
Mhm.
that is safe, that
Yeah.
can actually contribute to your learning and your growth and development.
Yeah, and I
So,
will even speak to the people who are teachers. Maybe you are a professor that you're listening to this,
yeah.
or any aspect. Creating that environment for your students it's safe environment is gonna be valuable and powerful,
Hmm.
like very powerful for sure, because that's tangible. and it's a domino effect, like we talked about.
Yes.
For sure.
Absolutely. With leadership, I'll just provide one more little example before we move on. So one of the things that I learned early on in my career, I love this, but I love it now, but I hated it in the beginning. So there's a guy who was like my mentor. He's my manager. He's the person who kind of like made me who I am as a professional today, contributed towards, I should say. Every time we would get on a conference call, we would be on a meeting, we would present in front of an audience, we would be training the team. He would always encourage me if I wasn't the person leading the conversation, if I was a part of that conversation or on a call, to contribute to the conversation in a way that everyone can benefit from, or everyone would receive something positive from. And I didn't recognize what he was doing, but he was creating a safe space for through me. He was creating a space through me because he believed in a safe space and creating that in the workplace. But I didn't realize he was encouraging me and influencing me to do the same thing that he would normally do.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I love that. And you know what I learned from it, I'm in a leadership position now, and I have student workers, and I've learned also from the unsafe leaders how to treat them. So like there's a lot of opportunities where they're like, I can see they're nervous about a task that I might have given them, or maybe maybe I didn't deliver it right. Like they just weren't sure, or maybe they just, I don't know, they did it wrong. I am not quick to really like react negatively. I'm just like, oh, you know what? Maybe I just didn't explain that correctly. Let's try it again. Or this is what I meant. Let me show you pictures. Or, you know what? Here's the task. But if you don't understand, reach out to me, and that's fine. Like
or ask more questions to understand, right?
And if they don't have the questions to ask them, like, it's okay to say that.
Yes.
I try to create the space of like, we're friends in a sense. You know what I mean? Like, let me know. I've got so much going on.
We're on the same team.
Yeah.
Right. It's not that you're over here and I'm over here. We're on the same team.
Yeah.
Let's come to an understanding.
Yep.
Right. That's how you create the safe space.
And
That's
also
how you
be
do
like,
it.
yeah, and just create, hey, like, how are you doing today? Oh, like something just seems a little off. Like, what's going on? Oh, you're super stressed about the test. All right, cool. Like, and I'll help navigate that environment too.
Right.
If I know that they're a little bit more stressed, I'm probably not going to give them a task that might be really hard on them, or maybe I do distract them if I know them enough that might be beneficial.
Right.
Just creating that space and that's just open and real, because that's how you're going to get the results that you need to move on, whether it's just in that work environment or in a friendship or anything in that manner.
Awesome. All right. What do we have next?
All right. Well, honestly, we hit all 4 of mine already.
Did we?
Yep. Surviving unsafe environment. We can kind of spin off my mistakes and how, like, when we make mistakes as safe people, that also gives people the opportunity to also feel safe to make mistakes.
Okay, I like it.
So like you making your mistakes while we're recording, like that makes me feel comfortable to make my mistakes.
I know. It's all intentional. All of it. Seriously. I said this to you, I think early in this recording, or either before we started recording. It's like I am willing to make even more mistakes, or it be a little bit more silly, when I have someone who could potentially learn and absorb the value of those mistakes.
And just even in my environment at work, working with doctors, like most people put doctors at pretty high, like they're intelligent, whatever. But watching them make mistakes, whether it's big or small, like it's like, oh, well, like if they can do that, then I can do that, and that's okay. That doesn't mean anything. Like you don't need a degree, you don't need experience. Like you just have to go through that mistakes, and that's, I think that makes other people safe.
Yeah.
Seeing that.
That is definitely something that I love to do. And I will always bring my experience in leadership up, and just like life experience, because that's what your show is about, really. But always like identifying a person who is not as experienced in doing whatever it is that we're doing. For example, the last company I worked for, I had a team of about 7 or 8 people. And what I would do is I would identify their strengths and their opportunities. I would never say weaknesses, because it's an opportunity to grow.
And that right there is a safe transition.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a safer way to communicate that. So just identifying their strengths and their opportunities to grow. And then I would take their opportunities and flip it upside down. Yes, we're going to use your strength to contribute to the team. But if you're Opportunity is communicating in front of an audience. Then I'm going to get you in front of an audience in a subtle way to communicate the next thing we're going to talk about, and that's it. Or I'm going to get you to communicate the agenda. Or I'm going to get you to stand in front of the audience and pass out the pamphlets or the documents that everybody's going to share and learn from.
But you had to create some kind of safety for them to be able to do that first, though, right?
Of course.
Because
Of course.
we've all been in environments where they're like, they'll just kind of like throw you into the deep end. You're like, oh my God. And to me, that's an instant unsafe. No. Like I've been in too many of those environments and I've not learned. Like I learned that once I got out of high school and I got into the university, I started learning because there were safer environments. And that's when I clicked. I thought it was, oh, you've got ADHD. Oh, you've got this. Oh, you've got that. Like I was not grasping anything until I was in a safe environment. And that's kind of what's motivated this whole conversation.
Right.
Was like, there's so much power in safety.
Yes.
You know, like we get belittled by every little thing. But to be able to grow in safe environments, like you can literally do everything in anything and everything, in my opinion. Like I feel like we can do anything with this podcast because we're safe for each other.
Absolutely. Yes. The one key word that I don't think we have used yet is the word trust.
That's a big one.
And it is. In order to create a safe space for anyone in any environment, you have to trust. You have to build trust, and it takes time to get there, right? It's not going to be the first interaction. It's going to be a few interactions that's going to confirm that you are a trustworthy person, because a safe environment and trustworthiness is really interchangeable. It's the same thing, right?
Yeah. And I think that also starts with your communication style.
Yes.
I think that's verbal and also like behavioral. Like what's the word when it's the outward?
Behavior.
Yeah, I guess that's the best one. There's another word for it though. It's like when your facial expressions, like your body language, body language. Like that's big because you can say all the nice things, but if you have like that frown on your face or something like that judgmental face, like that's not creating the trust at all. Like that's to me, that's an unsafe person. Yeah. Like I worked with
not immediately, like that. Yes, but not immediately, because like I'll tell you from my personal experience, I come across very serious and intense, and people who don't know me will make assumptions.
And that's a fact.
Right?
Yeah.
But once you peel back the layers and you get to know me in my experience of leadership, once you are on my team, you might be intimidated by someone like me.
Yeah.
And I've experienced that throughout my career and in my life. And it's kind of like, I've gotten frustrated because I'm like, I'm not intentionally trying to make you feel intimidated, but my actions will show you something very different, and it's going to happen sooner than later. Right.
And I think that's another aspect to learn is like, while you're still trying to figure out if you can trust somebody, is what do you fully base it on? Because like I said, and I'm learning this colleague who I think is unsafe, but then I'm also learning that maybe it's his facial expressions that are getting me. It's not necessarily his full on actions or words. And that's something I'm having to navigate. And I think it's uncomfortable sometimes because that's another growth of the relationship. Do you have anything on that you've experienced? Like navigating that uncomfortability, but like not sure based on what you just know?
I always have something to contribute. I think it does take you to scale back on what you're sharing, how you're interacting with that person. Because if you're not sure, if you don't trust that person, because that key word that came up, and I'm surprised we haven't brought this up sooner, but if you don't trust that person, there's no way you can feel safe with that person. So then that means you have to kind of limit and be intentional about what you share, how you interact with that person, and what you talk just to talk with them about. So that would be the advice that I would have, is just be intentional about what you share, the time you spend, even if it's as simple as like you're on a team or you're at school and you're going to have lunch with a group of people. Giving them the time, the air time of having lunch with them or walking with them side by side, if you don't trust them, is sending the wrong message.
No, that's valuable for sure. I think the biggest thing too is, I actually don't know where I'm going with that.
It's okay. You got to keep your poker face on.
Yeah. I think I'm just running out of things for this topic at this point.
Okay.
We've hit trust, we've hit communication, we've hit the surviving the environment, unsafe people.
Yes, okay. when we're recording, because like, look, we're at 57 minutes.
Yeah, that's
Don't
pretty
give
good.
up.
No?
Don't give
Okay.
up on yourself, right? So we can wrap it up. I did want to finish off where I was talking about trust. So
Uh-huh.
when it comes to trust, you have to create that trust before giving someone an assignment to say, hey, I
Mhm.
need you to present, or I need you to be on a call
Yeah.
on Microsoft Teams or whatever the case may be, on camera, and do
Mhm.
something or say something, right? There's got to be that intimate moment of
Yeah.
consistency of you building trust with that person,
Mhm.
and then asking for permission.
Yeah, and I think a big thing too is when you're teaching and learning and watching them do their mistakes is it's like it's not laughing at them, but laughing with them. Like,
Yeah.
oh, like you made
Yeah.
that too. I've done that same thing. That's all
Yeah.
good. Like, let's do it again. Like,
Relatability.
yeah, big
Yeah.
time. And just
Yes.
even if it's something you haven't done, and just know that you could be made the same mistake. You never know. I know even if as a master of some things, all of a sudden I make new mistakes, and I'm
Mhm.
like, what? Like I didn't have that same mistake when I was a rookie. But then when you're teaching others, I learned that sometimes you make mistakes differently, and that can
Mhm.
be the safest way for sure.
Yes. So yeah, I wanted us to land the plane on that note. So yeah, if you wanted to just wrap things up.
Well, all right. Thank you guys for listening. This is King Ferdinand, and yes, and we just identified safe people.
Yes, we did.
Yeah,
We talked about a lot of different
we
things,
did.
and trust came up at the very end. But the only way you can have a great relationship where
Mhm.
you feel safe with that person is if you build trust first. So
Yep.
thank you so much, Becca. Best
Yes.
of
Thank
Becca. Thank you.
you.
Thank you very much. This was great. This was
Thank you.
great.
All right.
Awesome.
Yay. This was good. Thank you
Let's
for doing
let's
another.
let's review.